to this session in Advertising Management Unit 3. Up till now, you would recall that as far as the advertising process is concerned, we have already completed our discussion on the first 4 steps, and now is the time for us to discuss how to evaluate the advertising effectiveness. So this is going to be the agenda today, and this would also incidentally be the last session in Unit 3, right? So let us understand how to evaluate advertising effectiveness. I hope you remember that in management, whatever you do, you also have to assess how effective it has been, because based on that information only, you can further improve the process. So you know that in all the things in management, whatever we do, the last step generally is assessment of effectiveness, and we would be doing the same thing as far as advertising is concerned. So here also we would be assessing the effectiveness of our advertising campaign, because that will help us improve the effectiveness of this campaign further, right? So please understand, as far as the evaluation is concerned, there are 2 types of evaluation. One is pre-testing and the other one is post-testing. What do we mean by this? Please understand that pre-testing means before, and before the assessment is taking place, before what? Before actual implementation of the advertising campaign, which means before the advertisement is released for the consumption by target audience, you do an assessment of its effectiveness, whether it has been effective or not. So that would be called pre-testing. And based on whatever you understand with this exercise, after doing this particular exercise, you further improve upon your advertisement campaign before actually releasing it for consumption by the target audience. On the other hand, what is post-testing? Post-testing is when the advertising campaign has already been released, it has already been shown to the target audience. Now you are doing an assessment of its effectiveness. So this is the difference between pre-testing and post-testing, right? So let us first understand some of the methods which can be used to assess the effectiveness of advertisement campaigns. Number 1 is consumer feedback surveys. I hope you understand. These are surveys wherein we talk to the customers and we get their feedback. We have discussed what surveys are. They are generally used in descriptive research, and in this particular case, this also is some kind of a research wherein we are trying to assess whether our advertisement campaign has been effective or not. So here we will be making use of surveys, and there would be questions posed to our respondents from those members in the target audience who have got exposed to our advertising campaign, and based on their responses, we'll assess the effectiveness, right? This can help us in measuring the comprehension after the exposure to advertisement. So what we will be doing in pre-testing, what we will do, we'll ask some of the people, we'll bring in some of the people to our lab, and then we will show them our ad. And this is before we are actually releasing our ad publicly. So we are doing a pre-test, right? So we will be bringing them to our lab, we'll be showing them our ad, and once they have seen the ad, then we'll ask whether they have been able to comprehend the ad, what message they have been able to understand from the ad, what is it that they have understood about the product from the ad, right? Based on this, we would be able to understand whether our ad is effective in communicating the benefits of our product, our ad is easily comprehensible by the target audience or not. And once we get these results, we would be able to further fine-tune our ad. So this is one thing that can be done in pre-testing phase. Again, this can also be used in post-testing, wherein once the ads have been shown publicly on some media, we'll contact some people who have seen these ads, and then we'll ask the same questions, we'll pose the same questions to these people. So that can also be done once the ads have actually been telecasted for consumption by the target audience. So that would be the post-testing. So the methodology would be the same, but it can be conducted before the actual release of advertisement for general audience and after the actual release also, right? Now, what do we mean by laboratory tests? Now, these would be conducted pre-test. These would be an example of, these are going to be examples of pre-testing. Laboratory tests, what happens, please understand, in survey, I hope you remember from our discussion in research methodology that the respondents can fake the responses. It's not incumbent on the respondent to provide you real honest answers. They may fake the responses. They may not provide you honest answers. Now this is a big problem with survey methods. So what do we have as a solution? We have got the laboratory tests. In laboratory tests, what we'll do, we'll measure these bodily parameters like the heartbeat, the pupil dilation, the blood pressure, right? These bodily parameters change when somebody is exposed to something which is very interesting. So somebody is exposed to something which is very interesting. So he will be forced to pay attention, right? And he will find that particular thing interesting. So just by looking at these bodily parameters, I can gauge whether the person who has seen my ads is attending to my ads, is attending to the message shown in the ad, and is he finding my advertising campaign interesting? Does he find my ads interesting or not? So this I can gauge by looking at the bodily parameters. I'll give you an example of pupil dilation. I hope you remember from our discussion research methodology that what happens when somebody comes across something which he really likes or which he is interested in. There's a dilation of the pupil. Pupil is a part of your eye. It dilates. The area increases when you are exposed to somebody whom you like, right? So if my subject who has come for these laboratory tests, these people who have come for these laboratory tests, I will do what? I will show them my ad, and then I'll look at the level of pupil dilation, and for that I have got a measurement instrument which is called a pupilometer. Based on that I can assess whether the pupil has dilated or not, and this will give me an idea whether he has found my ad interesting or not, right? Again, when does your heartbeat increase? Heartbeat increases when you are excited about something. So if there is a lot of excitement, your heartbeat would increase, right? So what will I do? I will show them my ad and I will take a baseline measure of their heartbeat. What is the baseline measure? The normal heartbeat is, let's say, 74. And then I look at whether there is an increase in the heartbeat after seeing my ad or not. So has my ad been able to arouse my audience or not? This I can gauge by measuring the change in the heartbeat. Again, I will take a baseline measure of blood pressure, and again I will see whether getting exposed to my ad increases the blood pressure or not from the baseline figure, from the normal blood pressure that a person has. So this will help me gauge whether somebody is finding my ads interesting, whether somebody is finding my ads striking, and whether he's actually paying attention to my ads or not, right? And generally what I'll be doing, I would not probably only be showing my ad, I would be showing him a bunch of ads. So maybe 10-12 ads. Within those ads there would be probably one of my ad would also be lined up among those ads, maybe at the 2nd position or the 7th position or somewhere at maybe 9th or 10th position. And therein I'll try and understand whether his pupil dilation level has increased, whether heartbeat has increased, or blood pressure has increased when he's getting exposed to my ad, when compared to his exposure to other ads which I am showing to him. So I would not only be showing my ads, I would be showing him a bunch of ads, maybe 10-12 ads, just to make this exercise more error free. Fine. So this is how you would be conducting laboratory tests, but please understand there is a problem with the laboratory test also. Number one issue is, we have discussed this in research methodology, number one issue is it is going to be costly. You will have to buy so many equipments. Naturally, pupil meter is not going to be a very easy to find or easy to purchase kind of an equipment. You'll have to spend a significant amount of budget on buying pupilometer, for example. And secondly, please also understand, many a times the heartbeat increases because you are seeing, we have seen that heartbeat increases because you are seeing something which excites you, but then heartbeat may also increase when you are a little afraid of something. I hope you recall what happens when you are moving in the dead of the night and suddenly there is a sound behind your back, so your heartbeat increases. So just by looking at the heartbeat, just by looking at an increase in the heartbeat, I cannot say with 100% surety that he is excited. He might have found my ad threatening also. So now this difference I cannot gauge, because if the ad is exciting, then also the heartbeat would increase. If the ad is threatening, then also the heartbeat would increase. So this is some problem with the laboratory test. So this is something that we have to take into account. So whatever the conclusions that we reach using the laboratory test, they have to be understood by taking all these things into account, right? Now let's talk about the other methods that we have. We've got a portfolio test. So what happens here, we will show our audience, and this is generally done as a part of pre-testing. So just before releasing our ad to the target audience, what we will do, we'll ask some of our target audience members to come to the laboratory, and therein we'll show him a number of ads. We would not show him just one ad, we would show him a number of ads, and this list of ads would also have my ad also. So they would probably be shown maybe 10, 15, 20 ads, and there would be my ad also shown in between, somewhere in between, right? And then I'll try to assess whether they have been able to recall my ad or not. Once they have seen all those 15, 18, 20 ads, do they recall my ad or not? Do they understand? Do they recall the message which I tried to give them in my ad or not? Do they recall the content? Do they recall the benefits that I talked about? The benefits of using my product that I talked about in my ad. So that is something we will try to find out from him, whether he is able to recall all those things or not from his memory. If he is able to recall, it means that my ad has been effective, because at least he remembers what was the message in my ad and what was the content of my ad. But if somehow he is not able to recall, that means my ad would get lost in the ad clutter. There are so many rival ads which are also shown to him, and he probably would not be able to remember the message in my ad, which means my ad is not going to be effective, because when he is going to buy the product, he does not remember my ad and the message which was shown in that particular ad. So naturally the ad has not been effective, and I'll have to work again on that particular advertising campaign. Is that making sense? So this is what portfolio test. Why do we call it a portfolio test? Because a portfolio of a bunch of ads are shown, not just one particular ad is shown to these subjects on whom I'm conducting these tests. In home test and theater test, now what happens in home and theater test, please understand. In home test, what we will be doing is, we will show, there would be specialized devices for this, and there some selected families would be shown some ads on their TV sets when they are watching their TV in their homes. Likewise, in theater test again, the ad would be shown to the audience when they have gone to a theater to watch a movie. So therein, maybe during the lunch break or maybe during the interval, you would be showing the ads. So that is why these kind of tools, these kind of tests are called in-home test and theater test. Again, it would be very much like a portfolio test, wherein I'll show him a number of ads and then I'll see whether he remembers my ad or not, whether he remembers the content and the message of my ad or not. And it could also be a slightly different version, wherein I give these people who are watching my ads some money and see whether after watching my ads, do they buy my product? Do they go to the market and ask for my product? So after watching my ad in the theater, do they go out and actually buy my product or not? This is what I can find out, and this will help me understand whether my ads are able to convince my target audience to buy my product or not. Fine. Now let's move over to trailer test. Now a slightly different version. What will happen in a trailer test? Please understand. Impact of ad on redemption rates of coupons. Now what do you mean by this? Impact of ad on redemption rates of coupons. See, what will I do? I will first of all gather a number of subjects who will be seeing my ad. They will be shown my ad, right? And then I'll give these people some coupons which they can redeem while they purchase something from the market, right? Or from some selected stores. So they can redeem that coupon. So for example, I'll give them a coupon which is worth rupees 2000 and they can buy something using that coupon. Is that fine? I will show them my ad, and then I look at redemption rates. How many people actually turn up to buy my product at the store? Because if people turn up to buy my product at the store, it means that they have been convinced about the quality of my product. And if they don't turn up, then there are reasons to be worried, because it seems that my ad has not been effective in convincing them that I have got a good product. Is that making sense? Right. Now let's move over to the sales effect research. Now this can be a very good instrument to assess the effectiveness of our advertising campaign. What will we be doing here? We will study whether my ads are actually impacting the sales. Whether because of getting exposed to my advertising campaign, my audience goes out to the market and actually buys my product or not. The difference between the trailer test and the sales effect research is that in trailer test, they were not spending my money. They were not spending their own money. They were spending my money. I had actually given them coupons. But in this case, when I'm giving coupons, so that could also be one reason why they have actually gone out to buy my product. But here in sales effect research, I'm not doing anything of this sort. I'm not giving them any money, any coupon. I'm only showing them some ads and finding out whether there has been an increase in sales in the market or not. There has been an increase in my target audience purchasing my products or not. Instances of my target audience purchasing my products or not. So that is what we are going to find out. In fact, this is some kind of an experiment. I hope you remember our discussion research methodology experiment. Sales effect is the dependent variable. The sales is the dependent variable and the advertising is the independent variable. So is my advertisement leading to an increase in sales, or are they not impacting the sales and not able to impact the sales? So that is what I'll try and find out. This is some kind of an experiment that I can run. And how do I conduct this kind of an experiment? You can conduct in a very scientific fashion. You can have two markets which are otherwise similar in all the aspects. So we can have two markets. Let's take an example of Pythagorean and Bola. So we'll have these two markets which are otherwise similar on all aspects, all other aspects which can impact the sales. For example, the number of my rivals in both the markets is the same. The general income levels, the general purchasing power of the people in these two markets is almost the same. And now, in one of these markets, I'll show my ad. So maybe in Pithoragarh, I'll come up with these local channels and I'll use these local newspapers and magazines to expose my target audience to my ads. In Almora, I would not be doing anything, right? And now, once this kind of experiment has been run, then I'll see whether there has been any effect in the sales in Pithoragarh and Almora. Because if there is an effect, because all other things were equal, all other things in Pithoragarh and Almora were similar, so the only reason for a difference in sales figure in Pithoragarh and Almora could be the ads which were shown to my target audience in Pithoragarh. So this is an experiment, right? And that is why we are saying that this is an experimental design, and this process is known as market testing, and you would have read about this in marketing management also. And Pithoragarh and Almora would be known as test markets. So I have given you a very simplified version of how you can do market testing, but generally you go for market testing in not just two markets. You can go for, in fact you should be going for market testing in more than two markets. So you would not be conducting these experiments only in two markets. So this was just to make you understand how you can conduct, how you can go about market testing and what are basically test markets, right? So do remember these two terms, market testing and test market. Market testing is the process, while test markets are the places, are the markets where you are actually conducting the experiment. Fine. Now, then there is a criticism of this kind of a approach. Number one, what are the criticisms? Ads have long-term impact. What do we mean by this? So for example, if I have shown this ad in Pithoragarh today, all of the ad that has been shown, and all the target audience which has got exposed to my ad, they would not be buying the product within this month only. They may go on to buy the product 2 months down the line, 3 months down the line. So I cannot assess all the impact, the whole impact which has been made by my promotional campaign, by my advertisement, because not all the people who have got exposed and who have got convinced about my product quality by looking at my ad, not all of them would go and buy at that very instant. Some of them may wait for another 2 months, 3 months, or maybe 1 year to buy my product, though they have now got convinced after getting exposed to my ad campaign. So this is number one, the first criticism. And then the second criticism is sales do depend on other factors also. Now this is a general criticism of all these methods. Sales don't only depend on advertisement effectiveness. So this is a general criticism, right? So it is a criticism of all these assessment tools, effectiveness assessment tools that we are using. Sales don't just depend on how effective your advertisement campaign is. Sales depend on a number of things. Sales depend on, for example, income levels of the people, income levels of the target audience. Sales also depend on the presence of competitors in the market. Naturally, if there are too many rivals in the same market in which you are operating, then naturally your ability to get sales, your ability to make customers, make target audience buy your product is going to be much less, because there are so many other rivals also. Thirdly, general economic conditions. For example, due to Corona, last 5-6 months, the Indian economy has been seeing a very bad phase, which means the people would tend to postpone their purchase. They would probably not be making purchases anymore. They would tend to postpone their purchase. So that may also impact my sales. Then, what are the prices of my substitute products? I hope you remember this discussion from what you have read in microeconomics and managerial economics. The prices of the substitutes and the prices of the complements, they may also impact your sales. For example, if I'm selling cars, let's say I'm selling diesel cars. So the diesel car is not going to be sold only by doing very effective advertising. It may not get sold. Why? Because I'm selling diesel cars. They may not get sold. Why? Because the diesel prices, complementary good, the diesel prices are increasing, are on a high. So people would tend to postpone their purchase of diesel cars. So what I'm trying to tell you is that advertisement effectiveness, if you are trying to assess, you have to also take into consideration these factors. You have to take into consideration the fact that the sales are not only dependent on advertisement effectiveness, they are dependent on other aspects as well, right? So this is a general criticism of all these methods. Most of these methods can be used both in the pre-testing and post-testing phase. For example, consumer feedback surveys, you can make their use both in pre-testing and post-testing phase, but laboratory tests generally they are made use in pre-testing phase. Portfolio tests generally pre, and in-home and theater test also generally pre-testing phase they are made use of. Even trailer test they are made use of in pre-testing and only the pre-testing phase, right? Here we can make use of sales effect research both in pre-testing phase and post-testing. If we are doing it pre-testing phase, this would be known as market testing. However, if we are doing it at post-testing phase, this is something that companies generally do. They come up with an advertisement campaign, actually go public with that advertisement campaign, and then after a little time, like maybe 6 months down the line or 1 year down the line, they look at the effectiveness of the advertisement campaign and bringing them sales. So that can be done post-testing as well, right? So this is all in this particular session, and with this we wrap up our unit 3. Now in the next sessions that we'll have, we will be having a test, and in the meanwhile I would also like to let you know that there have been some changes because of the length of the various topics which were there in this unit. I had to make some changes in the original lecture plan that has been shared with you. I had to increase the number of lectures, so this has been done here. So this is the new modified lecture plan for unit 3, and I will be sharing the lecture plan with you later on also. And one more thing which is there, I've already announced there would be a test in the next session, so be ready for the test. And one more thing which is there, these are your real life projects that you'll have to do. I hope you remember that these real life projects carry 5 marks out of 30 in your internal assessment. So you have to do these real life projects. You can form a pair. At one particular project at most can be done by 2 students, right? And there are 8 projects, there are 13 students only, so we can have a team also, a pair of 2 students doing a particular project, and we can also have, in some cases, only 1 student doing a particular project. So these are the different projects which are there. So what you have to now do is, you have to decide which particular project you are planning to do, and then you have to start working on that. And once we are through with Unit 4, I would ask you to make your presentations on whatever you have been able to do in your real life projects. Please understand that I would not be taking any excuse. Some of these projects which are those which you can do sitting in your home, while some other projects you'll have to go to the field. So those students who don't want to go to the field, opt for those projects which you can do sitting in your home. I am not going to take any excuse as far as doing these projects is concerned, and you would have to lose marks if you somehow don't complete these projects. As I have told you, once we are through with Unit 4, we are going to start it very soon. Once we have completed Unit 4, I would expect you to make your presentations on these real life projects, right? So the students who have had a look at these projects, now they can send a WhatsApp message straight away to me along with the topic that they have chosen and their name, so that I can allocate that particular topic to that particular student or that particular pair of students. Is that fine? And the topics would be allocated on first come first serve basis, right? And this you have to do within 24 hours of this particular lecture getting released. So this is the job for you in the next 24 hours. Thank you very much for your time, and in the next session be ready for a test, after which we'll start off with Unit 4. Thank you very much.